business. And one thing that I do want to make sure people know is that if you disconnect a phone line, although you're given a certain amount of time to reclaim that phone number, and each provider is going to possibly be different on the length of time, you may forfeit that number. And if it's a business phone number that you've had for a variety of time, you don't want to run the risk of not having that. So that's another thing to be kind of weighing the consequences of if that's what you do. But in all cases, you do want to check with the provider just to see what, in fact, the options are. A second thing that you can do is you can disconnect certain services. If you have, say you have internet, video, voice, and maybe mobile service or whatever services that you have, you may choose to just disconnect one service. For example, bars and restaurants that have sports packages on the videos, that's a very high expenditure for them. And if there's no one in the dining room, that might be something that they want to take a look at reducing. The only thing to consider is when you come back in again, there is going to be a reconnection charge. So you want to talk to the provider to find out what are your game rules? What am I going to have to play by? Because every provider could be different. Also, that if a phone line is disconnected, again, you got to worry about forfeiting that. You have to worry if your business is under a contract with a provider. There are many, many, many providers that hold customers to contracts. There is a provider that does not have contracts with clients. I'll leave it to your imagination who that is. But in all cases, you want to check with your provider to see what their game rules are for disconnection of services. So if it was a business that you totally had no clients coming in, no restaurant, no carry out, no internet sales or transactions, nothing at all, you could disconnect services and walk away and then come back whenever everything's ready. But then you need to just take a look at what the scenario is going to be when you come back in. There is an option sometimes if you have a gigabyte of internet, such as Scott has, and if you need to downgrade that service level into a little bit slower package, those are things that you can do with some providers. But again, I'll caution that there are pricing structures around different products, and the cure may be worse than the symptom. So you need to take a look at that with your provider. No two businesses are going to ever be the same. So you just don't know what's going to be the magic solution for any business. And then the fourth area to really think about is the emerging mobile services. And this is one that we have probably seen as a provider the largest growth in. Not just since we introduced it a year ago, but recently. It's a way to reduce business expenses for your voice solution overall. A lot of businesses are moving away from landlines and going towards cellular. I am not suggesting that that's the cure-all for all businesses. It has to be specific to your business. So you want to really decide what is the right solution for you. But even in the interim, if people don't have business mobile lines, this is some way for them to redirect their landline to a mobile line if their business is shut down, or even have simultaneous rings on their landlines to a mobile line. And then that way they can actually make sure that they're capturing every call that's coming into their business. There are a lot of pricing programs out there that are very robust, and it does allow the business owner more flexibility and a more cost-effective vehicle for those voice solutions if that's what they're looking for. But the real question for the small business to ask themselves is, how do I want to interact with my customers, not just now, but in the future as well? And how do I want my employees to interact with each other? But in all cases, it is, no two businesses are the same. Everyone needs to check with their provider and find out what their options are. Whether or not any businesses that you all are or you know of that are looking for some help, if you're not a charter customer, that's okay. If you would like me to take a look and try to help you out, I'm more than happy to speak with anyone on a one-to-one basis and to help in any way I can. But there's not going to be any, cut and dry solution to this. Everything has to be looked at. And the longer you wait, then that kind of doesn't really help the situation, because then you can't reap any benefits from reducing the costs. And then when you do come back in, the ROI on the cost savings to what the connection fees are going to be, it may not be the solution. So, but who knows when it's going to end? I mean, I don't think anyone really knows at this point. So that's my spiel, and I'll turn it over now to Josh and let him go, and then I guess we'll take some questions afterwards. Does that sound good?
So my name is Josh Wilcutt. I'm the owner of IT One Source. We provide technical services to businesses across the Midwest. If any of you have been in a Home Depot lately, you've noticed that the entire front ends of the Home Depot are renovated. My company does service providers for Home Depot and some small local businesses in the area as well. So we got a lot of experience in that. I think one of the biggest focuses in this time and this challenge that we have is really trying to protect the community from errors that can be made. Recently, just this last week, I noticed a flaw in the Department of Labor's website. My wife was one of many that got laid off, and she was not able to access unemployment benefits. So I realized that there's an error on the website that they made a big problem. People cannot access their user ID online. They have to call the number. But the problem with it is that the phone lines, no one can get through. So I have been reaching out for the most of the week, explaining to them what their error is on their website and how they can correct it through the Department of Labor and the governor's office and our leadership representatives in Missouri. But one of the things that I've noticed that a couple of my clients have been doing is using this time to really assess what's happening with their business from an IT perspective, making sure that the services that they have are efficient for what they need. Excuse me. And one of the biggest concerns I had when our workforce switched to a home network security standpoint was home networks are not set up traditionally like a business network. We all use phone apps on a regular basis, and the phone apps themselves have vulnerabilities. On my Facebook page, I actually posted, there's several news articles, and if you guys have been paying attention on the news, the hackers are using this aspect as a vulnerability for us. So I would encourage people to really review different phone apps that they have, make sure that the permissions are set, deleting all other Wi-Fis that they have on their phones. For some of my clients, they have actually started looking into other solutions on how they will handle business afterwards. For instance, getting printers that are on a toner and maintenance contract so they can reduce the cost in that regard. Checking the payment processing options that they have to make sure that it's not something that is costing them an arm and a leg. And the security aspect of payment processing is a big issue for businesses. And then as far as the security, making sure that your systems are up to date and up to par. And even some businesses are in the process of replacing some of their systems to make sure they're more efficient for workers to work off of. But like I said before, the biggest concern that I have is just the issue that we're having with everyone working from home. Some of the issues that businesses are having is how the teams are collaborating together in this time, using Microsoft Teams and some other software that they have. people are transitioning to, so they don't always have to hop on a call, because that can be time consuming as well. So I'm Cathy, you have any other main talking points?
Well, we have since this all started, I think originally when St. Louis City issued the stay in home order, I don't think a lot of people thought that, oh, gee, that's not going to affect me. So some people were going into their homes to work, and that has happened now. We've had a lot of installation orders of people putting home offices in their homes where they didn't have them before, or that they haven't had sufficient bandwidth to handle every kid that's home in the house and their college student and both spouses working. So that's been happening a lot with us. And you're right, the security of it. I mean, we obviously have certain things on our internet that we provide, but if someone wants to get in, I mean, what are the possibilities that they're going to get in? It could happen. I know that, I work with Charter, and so obviously we have protections in place with what I use because we have our own virtual network and things of that nature. But it is something that can happen. I will tell you though, my greatest fear is that when we're all finished and through and everybody's back to work with this, we're going to be bombarded with service order requests for changes, service order changes, new installations, moving this, moving that. So I've been working with clients. I worked with the church yesterday that we're actually trying to put some new services in right now and not waiting, because they may be in a long wait. When this is all through, if everybody sits back and waits, they'll be in a long line of people. We're still doing what we need to do, but it's just being very prudent in any business decision. And you can't always think about what's good right now. You have to think what's good right now, and then what am I going to need 3 months from now? What am I going to need 6 months from now, a year from now? Because it is going to be, it's very fluid. I mean, everything is changing. Nothing, I mean, we know Mike's on the phone too, my manager from Spectrum, and every day seems to be like a different day for us. So you just constantly have to be thinking, what's the next step and what can I do to make sure I'm protecting my business? So, and I don't know if you're finding the same thing, Josh, where people are they just reacting for right now? Or are they reacting for things to come?
I think it's a fair share of both. We live in a situation in the community that has kind of got pushed to a home workforce. All of us that are parents, myself included, we are now juggling teaching as well. So trying to find that work-life balance, but also trying to reassess financial errors that they were having before in their business, and to the point of getting more mobile in solutions. All of a sudden we have an influx of restaurants switching to mobile orders and carry out orders. So trying to get data to their teams and their customers is one of the things that businesses are trying to implement now.
So
Sorry.
really quick, Josh, that's okay. I just noticed somebody, Julie had posted a question. Can you explain why IT OneSource is different and how you can readily help a business owner with their IT and how you could save them money, how that could save them money?
One of the things that, a little bit about my personal background, I'm a 6-year combat veteran in the Army. My job in the Army was to install computer networks in fields. We started at the electricity level and then we moved up. And then I worked in the corporate field for many, many years. And one of the things that I realized was most help desk scenarios are ineffective. The bottom line is IT is a support field. We support businesses to get their tools, i.e. technology, working efficiently. And I've seen it too many times where a customer will be right in the heat of a moment upset. They have a technology problem and the business can't do it. Or they're relying on someone that has a non-technical background to troubleshoot a system that is not working. So IT one source, aside from basically, restart, power on, power off type scenarios, we actually send a technician to the site and make sure that the user is taken care of. So they don't have to worry about it. Sometimes businesses will put that into the hands of a cashier, and they may be great at customer service and great at what they do, but they're not a technical person. Sometimes it takes a technical eye to look at things a little differently. That's one of the reasons why Home Depot has awarded us with providing them services from here all the way to Eastern Kansas. So, because we cut through the red tape, that's kind of what we do. The other part of it is that too often than not, you have in the realm of mobility in today's world, there's other options available that are more cost effective for businesses that they can utilize, that doesn't cost them an arm or a leg. Small businesses don't need to have $1,000 server and everything else, and sometimes it getting back to the basics is really what they need. So looking at it from a different perspective, I've been able to help my clients transition from 90s based technology to current, and helping them save a lot of money in the process. And as far as, I'm reading Matt's question, is there anything you can help implement us for now while we're at home that will help us in a better position when we work from, when the work from home thing changes? I think that being mindful of what we're doing at home is something that's extremely important. Big corporations have VPNs set up, small businesses, we can set up VPNs for people as well. But recognizing where you're actually storing that data and what is on the data is something that is a safeguard method that we can just start implementing. It's kind of a change in process because we're so used to going to work and having that security right there. But understanding where that data is actually being saved is something that is very helpful in that regard. Also, making sure that your home network security, to Cathy's point, you can contact your provider and do some proactive things to your home network. When in doubt, turn it off. If you're not using it, shut it off. There's, without going into massive technical explanations and boring everybody to death, but there's some really proactive things that people can be doing. If you have an Xbox system that's constantly connected to the network and you're actually working from home, that's taking some space on your internet connection. Shut it down. Your home apps, when you're reviewing your phone and your apps, you really want to have a minimalist attitude, and you really want to review what those permissions are. Like if you have a note-taking app on your phone and it has access to your camera and microphone and all your contacts, may not be the best option to have. So, and a lot of apps actually have massive security issues in them, and we all are using our phones on a regular basis. I mean, we're holding a computer around all the time. So I think just being more aware of what's happening as opposed to having a more automated response can actually help the home worker stay more secure without having to go into massive technical solutions. And some people, honestly, depending on the data that they're using and the data that they're working with, they need a technical perspective to actually look at it and get a second opinion. Just like, I need an accountant to look at taxes. It's like we all have our skill sets, and we all have the things that we're good at, and then we have the things that we're not. And I think that's what only makes us as a community stronger. So sometimes helping people in that regard and looking at those perspectives. One with the perspectives, one of my roles was I was assisting doing the IT project management for a very large car dealership. And it was Plaza Audi, actually. And they had these beautiful desks in the service department that they wanted to install, but they had the wall jacks for the Ethernet and the power plugged into a wall 10 feet away from where the desks were. So I was like, as they were constructing this, I was like, guys, we got to put this on the floor where these desks are sitting so people don't trip on them. Sounds simple enough, but I was looking at it from an IT perspective, and it prevented falls and workman's comp claims and everything else. So sometimes it takes all of us as a community looking into things from our glasses that we're looking at. I would truly encourage everybody to just take a glance, now that we're slowing down in some aspects, to take a glance at their home network security and what devices are actually plugged in, and constantly using that data. That'll help productivity, but also help security as well.
So I have a question for either Cathy or Joshua. So my husband's working at home, and then I'm working from home, and we're doing the Zoom call, and I'm not sure what he's doing, but I know he has conference calls as well. How do we know? Sometimes my calls will cut out. If we're FaceTiming or whatever, it'll, like, everybody, the screen will go, you know, cloudy with the big X over them, and then it almost like has to like try to reconnect. How do we know when we're pushing that limit? Like, is there a way, like 2 devices, 4 devices? And then how do you, is there any time we would have to reset the I don't even, the boxes that are in the basement that are hooked to the wall? I don't know. Yeah, whatever. Sure. Router, the other thing, like,
Hey, well,
idea about any of this computer stuff. So.
Your question has multi different dynamics to it, and I'll try and address it as it goes. To answer your question about when you know how many devices is enough, that is something most, I know on Charter's home network systems, you can actually log into the account and actually see all the devices that are logged onto your system, and actually do a bandwidth test as well. So you can, after contacting your internet service provider at home, you can see everything that's there. Whether or not it's too much or not, it really depends on what's happening on them. You know, in our home systems today, everything, not just home, but in the businesses themselves, everything is so tailored to what the business and the home needs. Some people have a home with 12 security cameras that's attached to their network and 2 Xboxes, and then everyone has a cellular device and tablets and computers and everything else. Other people don't. So, and they don't need it. And same thing goes with business as well. So it really just depends. There's a lot of different varying factors that would happen. And the other part is that I saw a funny, well, we all are seeing the Facebook posts of, you know, people taking their computer and doing a walkthrough as they're doing their meetings and everything else. I've worked with several clients who I've installed home wireless networks to in very large homes, and they put access points in specific locations so that signal does not end. Some people just have the box, the broadcast right there. Ideally, the closer you are to the boxes, the greater the signal is. And depending on Wi-Fi travels, there's a distance for Wi-Fi. And some of it is also based upon the construction qualities and how good that signal is in specific rooms. I live in a house that's 100 years old, and there are parts of my house that are solid brick where the chimney has been. And I've noticed I've literally installed extenders for my wireless access past those points because the signal wasn't getting through. But to answer your question, I would honestly just take the time whenever you get a chance. Your internet service provider, you should be able to log on to that site and see the devices that you have on there and do speed tests to see if it's something that is sufficient for what you guys are using it for or not. So,
Mike Branton, are you still with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you're on there. You're not on the other thing.
I'm here.
Okay. Can you maybe speak to that?
Yeah, there's a neat trick that you can do. I mean, what Josh said was right. You can never really anticipate if you're going to have an overusage of your data throughput because there's so many factors that go into it. But if your provider has a wireless router or modem in your house that's putting out a Wi-Fi signal, a lot of times you can see a 2 megahertz and 2 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz broadcast signal. So it looks like, whereas it's called DABAnet. So it might say DABAnet 2G, and then you might see DABAnet 5G. So within your home, your newer devices can see both of those networks, and your older devices might only see the 2 gigahertz network, the one that says 2G. Sometimes what I'll find is that everybody has all of their devices on the 2G one, which is the slower one. And also, because all of your devices are competing for that same throughput signal, you might be creating congestion that doesn't have to exist. So if your provider gives you 2 different bandwidth signals to communicate with within your own home Wi-Fi, always connect to the fastest one and always make sure that some devices are on each one, and you'll spread out your ability to not compete with, with that throughput. You still have the same bandwidth connection to your house, so it's not going to change that. But sometimes there are session limits and different things that can cause that to get a little bit crazy. So that's a good troubleshooting thing that you might do at your house when you're finding that you're having devices competing for throughput.
Does that make sense, Wendy? Wendy?
Yep, I was shaking my head, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't hear the marbles.
No.
If you're a charter customer, for sure you have that. The charter customers have the 2 signals. It's a 2G and 5G signal. AT&T may do the same thing, and Central and the providers might do. So just look for that. That might help. But overall, yeah, it just comes down. One single device can have a problem with bandwidth depending on what the application is that you're using. So you just never can tell.
So how do you know when you need to maybe like upgrade your router, or like do those you buy one and it lasts forever, or?
Mike, you wanna go ahead and address that, because
I think that if it continues to be a consistent problem, it most likely is either that you need to have a faster connection to your house because your demands are just too high for the connection speed that you have, or it could possibly be if you've had that connection for a long time, your equipment might be old. If you've been a customer of your provider for 5, 6, 7, 10 years and you've never changed out that modem or that router, that thing is probably the bottleneck. So, I would say if you're experiencing slowness on a regular basis, call your provider, have them check and see what your usage is, have them check and see what kind of equipment you have there and see if that needs to be upgraded. A lot of times your provider will upgrade your equipment for you at no cost if it turns out that you just have something that's very, very old. Other times, if it's relatively new, they may have to charge you a service call to come out and look at it if they get out there and find out that, the problem was inherent to something you did within your network. But, like a lot of things Cathy said, no 2 situations are the same. So the best thing you can do is get a hold of somebody you trust at the provider that you're with and see what they advise you to do, or call the customer service number and they can probably help.
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks.
thank you. Any other questions?
Looks like Matt, should we be focusing on upgrading aspects of our IT while we're kind of slowing down servers, POS systems, payment processors, etc.? I would say looking at it and assessing what you have is something that is very important in our times now that we have time to. I had a client that literally had computers that their workers would come in and push the power button on their computers, go to the restroom, take a coffee break, and come back. 30 minutes later, that computer would be booting up. It was losing a lot of productivity, and it was a matter of the computers needed to go. And so I got with management and I discussed with them the issue, and I was like, we're losing productivity just because the systems are not efficient on what we need. So as the businesses and the communities are slowing down for safety reasons, I would encourage to just take a look, or, raise your hand, ask for help. Me and my team are always here to help if you guys need it. But I think that reassessing what you have in the realms of technology to better serve your customers, your clients, and your employees in this time is something that we all can do. And I think it is something that's recommended. I would greatly recommend that at this time. So, any other questions?
Real quick, is there any cloud-based, like we've just, we're looking at trying to work from home, and before we had just a drive at the office, and we would have to log into a computer at the office in order to access our files. So we do have Office 365 and OneDrive's part of that. Is there any cloud-based storage solutions that you would recommend? I mean, that was just part of our subscription. That was the easiest thing to switch to for us. Hopefully it's okay, but is there any other cloud-based subscriptions out there that maybe you might recommend that might be secure and backing up your files and information?
I'm actually a huge fan of OneDrive, to be honest. Me and my team extensively. We also use Teams as well, and Slack for project support as a collaborative type option. In the traditional realm of business, you have multiple players and multiple people that are actually working on different aspects of a project, and they're all coming together and moving forward. Well, we can't sit in a conference room together and discuss things like we used to. So having those type of systems in place is something that I greatly, greatly recommend. And it kind of goes back to where you're actually saving the file as well. You can create a shortcut. If you have the Office OneDrive subscription, you can create a shortcut on your desktop, and it's a change process, but people can literally just drag and drop the files they're wanting to collaborate with people directly into that. That prevents it from being on your physical computer. And I didn't touch on that, but antivirus software also is something that I highly recommend, and making sure that you're up to date on as we're working from home. VPNs are a tunnel to get to a corporate network, but if you have a bug and the tunnel's open, if it's not set up correctly, it can cause your business some havoc. So, but if we just get into the process, change the process on where you're actually storing that file, that eliminates a lot of security risks that's happening. And OneDrive is actually backed by Microsoft. So if that data was ever to get compromised, Microsoft's team would then be helping the business as well. So,
hey, Josh and Cathy, I guess, if we have people to kind of refer your way, how do we get a hold of you?
My email address is, I have a Facebook page, IT One Source, and one is spelled out.
Okay.
I will type it out.
And everybody knows how to get a hold of Cathy, I think.
That's correct. That's correct. I was going to say, if you slide a $5 in the envelope when you mail the request, I'll respond a little bit faster. I'm kidding. No, yeah, either through my email or mobile, either way. I'm around a lot, usually, maybe not so much now, but.
So this is Ray. I'm curious, is there one mistake you see people making over and over, or one thing, particularly from a security side, that they should be looking at?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Okay, I'm sorry. The question was, is there a mistake you see repeated over and over by people particularly on the security side. And I literally work out of my home about 90% of the time.
I think that the number one issue is passwords. That's one of the things that drives me crazy as well. Creating a secure password is something that is very helpful. I've implemented systems to where there's software programs out there that actually mask the actual password, and the person can actually be typing in something extremely simple. You know, it's a 26-character password, but they're only typing in flower 111. But it masks it, so the end user doesn't ever know what the password is. It's all done through the software program. But people are very lax on their passwords. For their home internet, they're auto-saving public connections that you have on your phone. That's a security risk that we're faced with now. And instead of using a software system that they use to house their passwords, they're just typing it out on sticky notes and leaving it on desks. That's like giving, you know, that there's an industry out there for people to steal and compromise data. And as a business owner, one of the things that PCI compliance is a big deal as far as payment card processing. I was a part of a situation where I was the IT director for Pizza Hut, and a delivery driver plugged in their cell phone to one of the computers, and MasterCard shut down their ability to process credit cards immediately, and it cost the business in the millions to remedy because they had to go through additional training and everything else. And it's all because there are apps out there that compromise and steal people's information. So, yeah. Did I answer your question, Ray?
Yes, you came back to that one thing I'm really bad about, so I appreciate that.
Hey, Josh, what I'd like to have, and I've told my manager this, I'd love to have a retinal scan as be my eye so that I can actually get online without typing in a password. Does that make sense?
Well, you don't like remembering 26 passwords?
No, At my company, we have to actually remember 26 different applications' passwords.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if there was a way to do a retinal scan and just scan my eye, probably the good eye, not the bad eye, I mean, that would be ideal. Are there any programs out there to do that?
Okta. Okta is one of the ones that I highly recommend.
Okta. OAPTA.
OKTA.
Okay. Did you hear that, Mike? Could you recommend that?
Awesome. Got it. Hey, you know what, Josh? I have a question for you too along those lines. I was shopping for a personal laptop right now, and I saw one that recognizes who you are for security purposes. I assume those don't have the intelligence to be able to identify whether you're really you and log you in. Is it more something where they recognize that it's clearly not you and shut it down? Or how do those work?
So, I got feedback. Can you say it again? I'm sorry.
It just kind of reminded me as I'm shopping for laptops right now, I've seen a couple of them that the camera has the intelligence to be able to recognize whether you are you sitting at your computer, and it's being sold as a security feature. What I was saying is, I doubt, maybe I'm wrong, I doubt it has the intelligence to just see your face and unlock your computer and your passwords all work. Is it more something where it recognizes that clearly that's not you sitting there and it'll kind of lock everything down, or do you know how those work?
I mean, my phone, I can actually look at it and it unlocks all my applications now. So, I mean, that is a security feature. One of the things that we also can do to help our security on our phones is you can actually set it to where if the Wi-Fi, a lot of us have newer phones, but you can set your phone to actually notify you if you're on a network that has some type of compromisation Sorry, I can't talk right now. But that technology is expanding, to answer your question, and I think that that is one way to stay secure, but nothing that we can do as professionals in the workforce changes the physical security, and just being proactive in, resetting our passwords and making sure that when we're on a public Wi-Fi, if we're traveling or whatever, we delete that connection off of our phone when we're done, and those type of things. Yeah, I mean, you can spend thousands of dollars on wonderful software to lock your stuff down, but security is really just to make it a nuisance for the hackers and more of a bigger problem for them to hack your stuff. So having a physical security mindset is something that I think is important as we are moving through this time and, working from home and collaborating with our teams from a distance.
So I was at a conference, institute in January, and we had a speaker at our conference, and she was like, oh my gosh, do not ever go to the airport and log on to free Wi-Fi, like Lambert Airport free Wi-Fi, because chances are it's not the free Wi-Fi from the airport, it's a hacker. And then she showed this video that's on YouTube, and I think I shared it to the chamber page. This would have been back in like January. And it showed, like they were at this, I don't know what airport, but they were at this airport and they showed free Wi-Fi and they logged on, and it was some guy sitting on his personal laptop over by the escalator, and everybody would get on and search for the free Wi-Fi, and they were logging on to his thing, and he was just stealing everything off of their phone. And then she also said, just pay the $10. Like when you go and check into a hotel, just pay the $10 to get the secure internet connection at the hotel. If they say, oh, with your Hilton rewards, you get free internet, just pay for the secure one, because if you log in at the hotel and it says free, Hilton Courtyard by Marriott, whatever, Wi-Fi, it could be the guy in the room above you with his computer. And when you log on, he's going to steal all the stuff off of your phone or your laptop or whatever.
Well, I agree. Their hackers do use that as a tactic that they have. I also understand that sometimes whenever we're paying for Wi-Fi, it actually is a scam. It's not necessarily more secure, The cool thing about our technology that we have now is most of the brand new phones that people are coming out with are already encrypted. So it would take a decent amount of skill to do that. Most of hackers exploit people that are careless with their information. So, for instance, Wendy, if you had an Apple Watch, right? And you had a car and you left all the windows down and you set it on the hood of the car and someone came up and picked it up. It's kind of the philosophy that is a little different, that I'm speaking in IT land. So in your scenario that you have, if you were to have changed the process and put your work documents onto a cloud server that's backed by a big industry versus leaving it on your desktop, or saving them on your desktop in a folder, you're actually, that would be the equivalent of you taking your Apple Watch, sticking it in your glove box, locking it with the windows rolled up, and then leaving, and someone trying to break into that. It would make it a lot more difficult for them. That's what I'm saying. So I think now with the time that we have, just having the mindset of changing some of your processes on how you are operating and doing business, and just being generally aware of what's happening, can prevent people from becoming an easy target, if that makes sense. So.
All right. Well, I think we have enough time for maybe one more question if anybody has one. Anyone?
What's the capital of Idaho?
Isn't it Boise? Boise?
Okay, well, there, see, it was an easy one.
I was like, who you asking? Just anybody? All right. Well, do you have anything else to add, Josh or Kathy, before we wrap it up?
No, not really. I mean, I think the most important thing is that if anybody that's on this call, if you hear a business owner say that they're experiencing some problems, it's great to show empathy and to say, oh gosh, I understand that's really a hassle and that's a problem. Say, but I have somebody that you should talk to. And then refer out Josh or myself to talk to them. And that's it more than anything, is to get them to someone who can solve whatever problem that they're having. I may not be able to, Josh may not be able to, but I know that we're both committed to getting that business owner to the right solution solver.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for having the conversation over some of these issues out there that certainly people are dealing with as they're working from home right now. So thank you very much. I believe we've got another Chamber University coming up. Wendy, do you recall, is it April the 8th? Do you remember when that is? The next one is?
April 16th, Thursday.
16th, okay, all right.
From 3 to 5. And it's with Purple Monkey Garage. And Josh Tolley will be speaking on the difference between marketing and advertising. And I think we touched a little bit on it with the webinar on Tuesday, so hopefully it wasn't all of it. But you can go to the website, go to the calendar and look at the 16th and sign up there, and we'll send you out like a confirmation. In the confirmation email, we'll send you out the link and the password to get on.
Is that just going to be the same thing as his last talk, or is he going to expand more on it? Because I don't want to take up a spot. He's going to.
Do you, Matt or Julia, do you guys want to?
I think he's just gonna specifically focus in on the difference, and then probably go into some depth on some actual examples that he's seen. So yeah. And actually, what I would say to anyone on here is bring specific questions, or be thinking of specific questions. He loves that. And you can try and stump him or something too. He'll like that.
Ooh, that would be fun.
That sounds like a challenge for Kathy. She's up for it, I can tell.
No, but you know what, Scott? You were thinking of as April 8th as the virtual Biz Brew.
Oh, that's what it is, yes.
That's right. And you knew that you could start drinking at 8 p.m. There you go.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you for reminding us about that. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming and being part of the call. We hope to see you either on the 8th or on the next call on the 16th. So anyway, we'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Bye, guys.